Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have as guest Mr. Kenneth Jones. Mr. Jones, welcome to the Black Male Impact.
Hello, Mr. Cross. Thank you for having me, sir. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the platform.
Man, it's a pleasure having you here. Mr. Jones is highly accomplished professional with 8+ years of customer service, recruitment, and community outreach experience in various industries. But before we get into the conversation itself, I will allow Mr. Jones to share more about himself so you can know more about what he have been doing and where he started his journey. So, Mr. Jones, go ahead, please.
All right. Well, thank you. First, I want to say thank you, Mr. Cross, for inviting me to your platform. I've been actually following your platform for quite some time. So I first want to acknowledge you and your efforts for highlighting the positive aspects of Black men, which is much needed in today's society. It's really inspiring, and it's an honor to be part of that group of Black men in particular who have participated in these interviews. This platform, it actually showcases in my opinion, the real movers and shakers that move missions forward for many corporations, institutions, community organizations. So those particular Black men that you have highlighted have positively affected communities across the states on a day-to-day basis. And so your efforts, Mr. Cross, I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge you first for bringing about the gradual redefining of the Black male image, because that's very important. So I'm just really appreciative to even be here today, and not only to be acknowledged, but also to participate on the platform as well. So thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, man, no problem, man. It's a pleasure having you here because one thing that we have to do is to find wherever we are and doing the work. So we have to spotlight what Black men are doing to help change the narrative. So thanks for kind of saying what you have said with what I'm doing and the impact that I want to make, and which is part of highlighting what other Black men are doing in their communities. So, man, it's a pleasure. So we're going to go straight into the conversation itself. So I'm going to start with my first question. What is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
Sure. So that's a really good question. I believe that the mindset that you need to have to make an impact is that you first have to be selfless. You definitely have to have a sense of community. So for the Black men that have worked hard and reached their certain level in their career and have experienced certain levels of success, we have to keep in mind that because we are at a certain level, that we are the potential difference makers for our communities, especially to the younger generation. So with our experience and wisdom, we can offer really the blueprint on potential career paths for our youth. And then also too, for those that when they reach a certain age and they're ready to enter to the workforce, we kind of know the ups and downs of the industry, what to do, what not to do. So I definitely think that it's really just having a selfless mindset. That's one. And then two, I think you also have to be fearless as well. You can't be afraid to fail, which I'm sure we've all heard that before. As Black men, we oftentimes can be stereotyped because of how people may perceive our overall ethnic image. However, now that I kind of see things shifting as far as for Black men who are moving into non-traditional occupations. So whether it's in the political arena, or like myself, or tech spaces, trades, or even now the growing number of Black men entering into entrepreneurship, I just think that we're really making some strides. And so you have to have a fearless mindset, be really willing to fail, but not take it as a failure, but take it as a learning lesson so that you can actually move forward.
I really appreciate that perspective from being selfless, because when it comes to making a difference, you have to know that you will have to make some sacrifice, and knowing that you want to make a difference, and it comes with you going the extra mile and doing more than the ordinary. So that being selfless, because when you're trying to make a difference, you're not just doing the work for yourself, you're doing the work so you can impact the lives of others. So that's a great perspective to have. And I really appreciate you sharing the perspective of being fearless. because to make changes or to go down a path that it's not common, especially in your immediate environment, it comes with pushbacks. It comes with the chance of you failing. So I really appreciate you sharing those two perspectives when it comes to the mindset and making a positive impact, because you have to make sacrifices. And there is a great chance of experiencing failure or even people doubting you. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And that leads me to my next question. What advice do you have for the men listening and how they can play a role in creating positive change?
I'm sure. So I would say that for the men that are looking to create that change, I think it's, well, one phrase I've heard plenty of times, that you have to start where you stand. And so you can always start in your own communities or within your own employment, and then utilize those, I would say, those entities to move the mission forward, to reach out to others. And obviously there's ways you can do that, but of course, you have opportunities where you can actually mentor youth who may be interested in maybe furthering their education or furthering their knowledge on certain subjects, or into certain career paths. That's one thing. Also, too, getting involved in the youth organizations or some type of professional organizations or fraternities. There are plenty of ways to give back and be involved, especially if you are a man who is established in your particular career field or in a leadership position. I personally feel like it's the responsibility of men, especially Black men in particular, to reach out to the younger generation, to not only provide them with the positive role models that are needed in today's society, but also to provide them with the direction, guidance, and then tools for them to be successful. Because as we both know, Mr. Cross, every successful man is the product of someone.
Correct.
And so I just think that it's just important that the individuals who are conscious become more involved to help those that are coming behind us. And that's going to be important for the future.
I think that is really important. One big aspect of what you just shared is that we get involved, and I think that is going to be a great step forward. And because what we who are ahead learn on the journey, it's our responsibility to share with the next generation. And as you mentioned, that we get where we are because of someone else. So we have an obligation now to make sure the next generation know that it is possible. So they have to, as they always say, it's easier to become what you see. So getting involved, help them to see us. And the more they see us, the more they will have those aspirations to do some of the things that we are currently doing. And they may not want to do what we're doing, but it gives them that motivation, that hope, that whatever they want to do is possible. So I think that getting involved is one of the best things that we can do. And we should get involved in our communities, whatever organization, as you mentioned, to make a difference. But as you shared with the youth and getting involved, do you have young people coming up to you initiating guidance, or you have to kind of reach out to them? Do you have young people in your community initiate guidance from you?
So I would say it was more so I would say some of the parents, Mr. Cross, that might reach out to me more so than the young people. But let me add a little context to that. So my current role as of right now in my professional background is in municipal government with the specialization in community relations and government affairs. So I've been in that role now for about 4 years with my municipality as the community relations coordinator. So while I've been in that position, I handle a lot of different duties. So I'm responsible for the overall leadership, growth, direction, budget management, strategic planning for a number of initiatives and community projects, not only in my current role, but also in many of the external community and regional organizations that I participate in, such as Rotary International, Illinois Sister City Association, and then I'm also the current chair of our area's neighborhood network, which is an organization that we recently established to address the needs of our community through programs and strategic partnerships. So in those roles and those different things that I do, I have a lot of people that come up to me looking for resources and also internships and things like that. So the parents usually come up to me and they ask me if their child can actually volunteer or be involved in some type of internship programs that we actually offer. So that's very common. And so we do have an actual internship program that we actually run every summer. And this has been very successful. I've had the opportunity to mentor some great young people. Even this past summer, I've had a young man who's actually, I believe, his third year in high school. So he's very open to learning, very interested in getting to know the role and what the role consists of. And so it was very fulfilling. I would definitely say it's something that I'm glad to even be able to do, but it's something that we need to do more of in our communities to have, I would say, consistent opportunities for individuals to get a chance to learn different career fields and different aspects of different occupations. So when they, again, when they do become of age, they'll know exactly what to do, what not to do, some simple professionalism tips, things like that.
Well, and that's great, especially when it comes to the younger generation as well. Parents needs to be involved, and if parents are seeking ways for their kids to be involved, that's even great. That shows there are some guidance there for the young people, because they all may not get the exposure to come to places where they will meet people. So having their parents do the initial questioning and to find out, I think that is really great. And that's where some improvement will take place with the young people and for them to get connected to great opportunities and stuff like that. So I'm glad that there are parents in the communities that are doing those things, making the connections for their kids. And that leads me to my next question, and which, most of these questions focus around Black men and what we can do to make a difference. So how can we, as Black men, help to create change or change the narrative today?
So I would definitely say, Mr. Cross, I believe that Black men, we have to seize our season. And what I mean by that is just as these times, as of right now, this is I believe, a great time for Black men to be prosperous. There is a plethora of information out there for individuals who want to get into whatever type of business or endeavor you want. And so I just feel that we need to definitely take the opportunity to, one, educate ourselves, two, to make plans so we can implement the things that we want to implement while we're actually progressing through whatever our business plan is. And then also, too, just making sure that we're putting the effort forth and putting in the work. Because, everyone, especially young people, but I think just people in general, a lot of people just want things to come easily, and that's not going to be the case all the time. So I just think we need to definitely put in the work, focus on developing our skills and our expertise in our chosen field, whatever that may be. And then just once we get to that point, just making sure that we're offering value to the community in general, especially as men, and just being an example to our young men as well.
As you mentioned, and that's great. But as you mentioned, that we need to seize the season.
Yes, sir.
I think that is a really powerful call to action.
Yes, sir.
Because we have to look around and see what's going on and realize that if the change is going to happen, we will have to create those change. And being that the need is so high, which is a great time for us to really step up and do what we can do. And I believe also in seizing the season, it's not to focus on what other people are doing, but what we as individual can contribute. So, because we all have different things that we can do in our communities or do to make an impact, and realize that that's what is necessary. It's not to focus on what we can't do and say, what, this needs to be done, but to focus on what we can do and do it. If we're going to seize the season, and I really like that phrase, if we're going to seize the season, We have to be intentional with doing what we can do. But being that you are in politics to some extent, how do you see the young men or men in general? How the community receive Black men who are in politics?
Oh, that's a good question. So I would say here in the Chicago Southland area, because that's where I'm actually at. So that's about 20 minutes outside of Chicago, I would say. I believe men of color are received well. I think there's a I would say, changing of the guard, I would say, I guess the best way to put it, because in our area, some years ago, it was traditionally more of Caucasian, I would say Caucasian mayors in the communities and surrounding communities. But now I would say within the last few years, there have been a lot more men of color actually taking positions of leadership. And so I believe they're received well because in our area, I would say it's predominantly African-American communities. And so I think they're received well. I think that the standards for them to do well are also high as well, which is great because it holds leaders to a high standard, which is, of course, which is the benefit for the communities overall. So I would say they're received well, but again, the expectation is high as well for you to make changes and be a benefit to your community overall.
Well, but as it comes to change the narrative as Black men, having high expectations, I think that should be like the standard, having high expectations, because we know society looks at us differently. And as most of us have heard that, we have to do twice as much to get the same recognition. So having the high standard, I think it also helps the next generation to see Black men in excellence, doing the work to make a great impact. But when it comes to changing the narrative, I think being received better in our communities, I think that will also help to change the perception and misconception that society have of us, especially as you mentioned in politics. Some people may have looked at us differently before we reach into those leadership roles, wondering if the Black men can do as great a job. But we already know that Black men can do the job. Sometimes we just need the opportunity to be in those spaces, which now give the next generation an opportunity to see Black men in leadership role doing the work that matters.
Yes. I was actually going to say too, Mr. Cross, to piggyback off what you're saying. So I've actually had the opportunity to collaborate with many of our local, state, and federal political figures. And that has been great. And it's given me a chance to actually view leadership from a high level perspective. And, that perspective has definitely motivated me to even want to continue to contribute even more myself to help build and just the overall well-being of my own community, for the future. So I definitely would say, with me and being accepted into political roles now, I definitely feel like it's having an impact, and then of course it's going to have an impact on our future generation as well.
Man, I do believe so, because when they see us, it inspires them to, oh, this is possible. So the young people seeing you in those leadership roles, it really will give them that idea that what maybe at one point I can be sitting in those seats. So I think having Black men in those spaces, leadership role, really will inspire the next generation to believe more in themselves and what is possible for them to pursue in the future. But that's going to lead me to my next question. I know you have been in politics. I don't know if that's where how you started your journey, but what or who has influenced or inspired you to pursue the path that you're on?
Sure. So I would say there's probably two people that come to mind right off the top of my head, Mr. Cross. But let me say, so I've had some great men in my life to actually help me develop my moral compass over the years outside of my professional life, which came later. Those men were my uncles and my grandfather, and they were great. However, one of the primary individuals I would say who inspired me the most to get involved in the community and community engagement in general is my mother, which is Pamela Colquitt Jones. She unfortunately she actually passed away a couple of years ago.
Sorry
But
to
my
hear
mother was a rock star when it came to her involvement in the community. She was not only a devoted wife, mother, but was also well known for her volunteerism. She was a president of the PTO for a number of years. She won a number of community awards and various accolades. So I definitely would say she highly influenced my early years as far as my interest in the community, and just instilled in me that sense of you can always bring value to your community and do more. And so that's something that I followed. Obviously followed in her footsteps in many ways, especially professionally once I became an adult. So I definitely want to say my mother was one of those people who definitely helped me and inspired me to get into the path that I'm on now. And then second, while I went through a lot of various jobs in my younger years, which you mentioned, I have 10 plus years of experience in various fields: customer service, sales, recruitment, higher education as well. So I just had a number of different things that I did in my early years before I found my career path now. So I want to be just very clear. I had great men in my life who helped me establish a moral compass, but I had very little professional mentorship in my younger years, or professional examples to follow during that time until I came across an individual who I do want to give his props, which is Dr. Darrell Williams, who I met early in my professional life while I worked in higher education. He is now the vice chancellor of the City Colleges of Chicago. And so I don't think I've never mentioned this to him, but he was very important to me initially, especially in the beginning of my overall professional development. He was just pivotal in my initial professional growth, in my progression, because he actually took the time to explain the importance of professionalism, also focusing on the details like the development of my soft skills, my overall presentation skills, just the utilization of just tact, self-awareness, establishing successful work habits, all those things that make you successful while you're progressing through whatever career field you're in. And so I worked with him for a number of years, which was some time ago now, but I worked with him for a number of years. And however, the things that he actually instilled in me during that time, I still utilize to this day. So this is just an example of how men, when we are present, we are powerful.
Correct.
Because we as Black men, we are unintentionally powerful anyway. That's why our inventions, our music, our overall culture have influenced the world. We're just powerful, even if we don't know it or not. So when we put our purpose to power, we can achieve great things. And so we've seen examples of this throughout history with the number of our Black male leaders, or individuals who just exuded power, but may have done it initially unintentionally. And so it was just one of those things. And those are one of the people that I also want to shout out as well, because he definitely had a huge impact on me in my early professional, career.
Man, that's great. We all have individuals that help us to find our way in life. And
Yes.
sometimes, even if they haven't really mentored us in the way that we think we should, but they may have opened the door to the opportunity that change our lives and stuff like that. So those people are always there and deserve their shout out and stuff
Yes,
like that.
sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So because as you mentioned earlier, we would not be where we are if we haven't met those individuals
Yes.
on our way. And that's why I believe, as you mentioned, we should get involved and be part of the next generation and help them to find their way. But I want to address one thing that you have said that I also believe is also powerful, that we are powerful even if we don't know it, because we have influenced people all over the world with
Yes, sir.
whatever we do. And if we show up on purpose, that in itself can be intimidating to other people. So as you mentioned, purpose to power. We're powerful, but when we show up on purpose, I think it just sends a different message
Yes.
to our environment, to the people, Yes, we want to do great work, but some people sometimes will take it as threatening. But naturally, as you mentioned, if we put purpose to power, or we become more purposeful,
Yes.
man, great things can happen because just by nature, we are powerful being, and you can tell sometimes you're in some spaces, you can sense like when black men may show up and he's on purpose.
Yes.
You don't have to ask, just the presence alone kind of give you that sense that the black man is on purpose. And that's a great reminder. So I'm going to mention these two things that you have said that before we go any further, that I think is a great reminder to all of us for us to seize the season.
Yes,
I
sir.
think that's a great call to action. So I want to repeat that for those who are listening, because I believe that is important as we go forward. And also to realize that when we put purpose to power, we can be tremendously impactful.
Yes.
I just want to mention those again because I think it is really important, which leads me to my next question. What is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in society today?
So that's a very good question. So I would say there's two sides to that question. So I'll tackle both. So I feel that Black men are progressing in many areas and fields.
Okay.
It's across from traditional corporate occupations to now you see more Black men moving even into more of the higher income trades.
Yeah.
So we are making those strides to move forward, as a collective, despite our historical barriers and difficulties that we've had to face. However, we do have many Black men, younger and older, who are still, I would say, in transition, right?
Yeah.
They're still trying to figure out exactly which direction they should go in, what they should do based on their circumstances and life circumstances and things like that. So I would say why it is important that the men who are conscious of the plight of the Black men as a whole to work together and advocate for more programs and resources for our communities. I still feel that Black men need to be open to change and be open to opportunities that may be available to them. Because there are tons of I know a couple of programs that are actually available to communities that a lot of people don't or may not be familiar with, that are very helpful, that can provide you with, I would say, a nice wage paying employment opportunity. And a lot of times, and I actually worked in that field for a number of years before I transitioned over to municipal government. So there's opportunities there, but sometimes individuals are reluctant to change, or they're open to change, but they are not serious about I would say, the actual process of getting into a new field or a new occupation. And so I just think that Black men in particular have to, of course, everyone wants to win and everyone wants to do well, but I think you have to put the action behind it to make some things, to make the changes that you feel that are necessary as far as for your future. And so I would say that's my two-sided answer to that question. I think we're doing well, but of course we can always continue to do better.
Well, I do believe that as well. But as you mentioned, there are opportunities out there that they may not be gravitating to.
Yep.
But do you believe that sometimes the opportunities that are out there, they are not aware of those opportunities? And how would you encourage Black men to find out what's available within their communities? Who can they talk to? Being that you are part of the government body, just share what you think Black men can do to find out more of the opportunities if they are unaware of what's available.
Sure. So I think the easiest one and the the easiest way to do that, and a lot of people, they do it already, but they don't think about it in this particular aspect, is to reach out to your local government bodies, whomever that may be, or your aldermen or your village trustees. Those be the individuals to reach out to, or just the governing body themselves to see what programs and resources they have available. And even if they don't have the programs and resources available, then I'm sure they could point you in the right direction of the organization that does. Because, a lot of times people will call for, will contact their government bodies for, other issues like property tax issues or some type of economic development issues in the area, or, just things like that. However, they usually don't call when they're looking for opportunities as far as employment or resources. That's not the first thing that comes to mind when you think about a government body. You don't think, oh, that's a great place for resources. You think that's more so a place to call when there's an issue. So I think a lot of people have to keep that in mind. A lot of government bodies have a lot of different resources and obviously contact with a lot of different organizations that can offer a lot. So I think that's one thing we could definitely try to promote more of as far as on the government bodies side. I would say also too, I would say that the organizations themselves also too have to, and not the government bodies, but the organizations that offer resources also have to increase their marketing and advertisement as well in those communities of need, and not just when there's an issue, but being proactive in getting that information out ahead of time. So when the issue becomes serious, then that community or individuals in that community already know that there's a resource available to help that particular person. Because sometimes, at least in my particular role, sometimes I see a disconnect between the communication and then the actual opportunities for residents to actually get together. Okay. Or to even know about a particular program. So that's something that I try to combat on my end, okay, to make sure that people are informed and that they're aware of the different resources and things that are available. But in other areas around the Chicagoland area, I know that that's a problem.
Man, and I'm glad you kind of shed the light on that, because sometimes you find not only men, but people in general at times trying to figure out who they can contact, yes, for opportunities within their communities and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you sharing that. But just to go back on what you said, that yes, we have been making a lot of strides. We have been achieving success in many areas. But as you mentioned, we still have work to do. And yes, we have to be intentional about the changes and growth we want to experience. So I appreciate you sharing light on that, because I think we can do much better despite the fact that we are doing well in different areas. And that leads me to my next question. And this is somewhat similar to what you have shared, but I'm still going to ask it. What change do you want to see in general and amongst Black men?
Sure. So I definitely would like to see amongst Black men, I would definitely like to see more collaboration and more communication among the different generations of Black men. So I know we kind of touched on that already, but just making sure that if I am, say, a teenager, that there should be a standard program for individuals to actually, one, have occupation choices, or at least be aware of the various occupation choices that are out there. And then two, if I decide to go into that particular occupation, then that there's a person I could contact who can kind of give me more of an insight on that particular field. And then once that person is identified, or when that person, once I connect with that person, if that's something that I want to get into, then that person can actually show me the best way to actually transition into that particular field. And then also too, while those two things are happening, also just a standard practice, there should be leadership development programs available for all, well, not only youth, but for men in general at all levels. There should be leadership development programs for individuals who want to learn about leadership, have an interest in leadership characteristics. I just think those things would be important, and offering those resources to Black men would definitely help to be more prepared for the future, and
Sure.
also just be more of a benefit to their communities overall.
Well, man, and that's really great. And just to go back to what you have said about collaboration, I think that is really important for us going forward. I think that will strengthen our stance in the world at large, but it also will strengthen our stance within our communities.
Yes.
Because when we are working together, we'll get more done. But it also helped to change the perception that have been developed amongst us as men, that we don't work well together. So by doing so, we change that perception, not just for the world, but amongst ourselves. Because whatever the world thinks about us, I think we also have been indoctrinated as well to think the same things about ourselves.
Yes.
So the more we work together, we change that perception within ourselves, but also give the world something different to say about us as Black men. Because working together, I strongly believe that will move us forward faster and even make greater impact. But also, as you shared with leadership development within our communities, or just leadership development on a whole, I think that will kind of give us the idea that we can become leaders. Because if we are exposed to the intentional development of leadership, although maybe they're saying we should be taking those initiatives to become leaders, but some of us are from communities where we haven't been exposed. So by having those things within the communities, which will give us that a desire, a stronger desire, to want to become leaders, because now we are thinking that, oh, maybe it is now possible for us to be in those roles. And even if we're on that trajectory of becoming leaders, it still helps to prepare us to be the best, our better leaders, not just for ourselves, but for the people looking at us as Black men in different leadership role.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
really,
I agree, Mr. Cross. I agree. And also too, Mr. Cross, to piggyback on what you're saying, another thing that I would definitely like to see as well that I think would also help in that aspect as far as with leadership development, more collaboration amongst Black men, is also the promotion of positive Black male media. I think there needs to be more of that as well, especially like with the work that you're doing, which is greatly appreciated and is definitely needed. But just promoting more positive Black male media platforms in general, I think is something that's definitely needed for the younger generation, and then even those that are still in transition in their 20s, 30s, 40s. That's definitely important as well. And that's something that should be definitely something that should be, I would say, magnified within our communities as well. Because a lot of, as you are, a lot of men, when they're going into manhood, they may not have examples to follow, whether it be for personally or professionally. So it's good to have those platforms for individuals that may need that guidance, so they can transition into being the best versions of themselves possible, which is of course a benefit to the community as a whole.
well, once we become our best self, we're going to be beneficial to the community.
Yes.
It's the most valuable asset a community has or have are human beings, us as people. So the more we are developed, the more we get exposure to the opportunities that can make us our best self. I think it will only benefit the community. And we need more of the opportunities to help to position us to make greater contribution or contributions to our community. So it will only make the community better,
Yes.
by providing opportunities where we can thrive and where we can become our best selves. So, and that leads me to my next question.
Mhm.
What was a pivotal moment in your life? And I know you have shared different parts when you get exposed to different opportunities, but what was a pivotal moment in your life?
I would say there's two, Mr. Cross. So the first one that comes to mind, I would say, would be when I actually had my son. So my son is 5 years old now. When he was actually born, it gave me, I would say, an additional sense of purpose and motivation. Now, I feel like I definitely had the motivation already, in my life to do a lot of different things and a lot of different aspects because I had accomplished a lot early on. I was able to, live pretty comfortably. I did a lot of traveling out of the country, bought my first house on my own, all that good stuff. Those are all big moments for me initially. However, when I had my son, it just kind of gave me an additional sense of motivation to try, to strive forward. It made me want to work harder to establish a legacy for him, to not only follow what I've done, but to also benefit from what I've done as well, long term. And so it made me want to increase my knowledge base, increase my overall financial literacy, become a better leader. So, learn better leadership characteristics as well, because obviously, you're caring for another person.
Correct.
And then also too, always thinking ahead for that particular person as well. So I definitely say it was my son who definitely kind of gave me that motivation and wanted to move to the next level in life. So that was one pivotal moment for me, of course. And then two, I would say is when I got into my current career path as well. It's something that so I always had an interest, obviously, in anything that's community based. And so when I actually got into this particular career field in municipal government, it just really just opened my eyes to one, the opportunities that are available as far as in leadership, and then two, the needs of the community were always, I would say, were actually magnified to me. I would guess you could say that because I deal so much with the community now and various organizations and things like that. So I definitely feel that those are two pivotal moments because it helping me find my particular career niche and finding something that I love to do. Besides it, just being, part of my employment, I really feel like it gave me an additional sense of purpose to where, I could actually benefit my community and surrounding communities, but on a long-term basis.
And thanks for sharing that. A lot of times that's becoming an apparent, really, put people on a different path, or for them to become more focused and know because they're not only caring for themselves, they are caring for another person. I
Mhm.
think that really have given a lot of people a stronger sense of purpose, which is great when it comes to being the change, when it comes to being a great example, because some of us who grew up in a household where we may not have all the resources that we wanted. So now one of our goal is to become that person who can provide way that will be different. And not
Mhm.
only provide in a way that can be different, but become that example so they can follow. So I think that is great. And I appreciate you sharing that with us in regards to pivotal moment. And that leads me to my next question. What life lesson have you learned late in life that you believe is important and can benefit this current generation?
Sure, sure. So I would say one thing that I learned later in my life is that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. Again, when you are a young man and you're kind of still transitioning to your manhood, you can be influenced by your environment, your community, just general stereotypes. And so I definitely feel like I experienced that as well. A lot of men, especially when they're coming to the manhood, they experience those things because you're in that type of environment. But once I actually started working in various career fields, I saw individuals who didn't fit into those stereotypes. And I felt like that was more so the things that I could relate to. And so I started gradually transitioning over into, I would say, the non-stereotypical lifestyle. And so I feel that there's never too late to reinvent yourself. You can always learn to actually make changes. The older we get as men, our interests and perspectives change.
Correct.
And it's just the growth that we have once we get to a certain age, and it's never too late to, develop your skills and further your education, whatever that looks like for you as an individual. So I think it's never too late to reinvent yourself and to move forward in life at whatever age you're at. I think it's always something else you could do, to move things forward.
Well, and I really appreciate that perspective of never too late to reinvent yourself, because a lot of times on the journey, we may be in a particular career, and then we feel as if this is what we have to do for the rest of our lives.
Mhm.
And if we don't expose ourselves to different opportunities or expose ourselves to the knowledge that can put us in a different environment, we may think that's all we can do. So
Mhm.
I really appreciate that perspective, because a lot of times, man, we do feel stuck. And we'll be
Yeah.
thinking, man, you know what, man, I've spent 20 years, 30 years over here working, and man, I can't do anything right now. But if we have that mindset or keep that mindset, we will stop. And some people find their true purpose, after 20 years working in a particular career, because they may have chose the career that they're in because their parents told them about it, or because it looks more lucrative at the time when they decided. So sharing that perspective, I think it is important and a great reminder that it's not too late to reinvent yourself. So I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
And that leads me to this question. Where can the listeners find you and help support the work that you're doing to make a difference?
Sure. So I'm actually on all social media platforms. So you can reach me on LinkedIn at Kenneth Jones. Also, too, I'm on Facebook as well under the same name. So if an individual would like to contact me regarding anything as far as in the Chicago Southland area, they can reach me there. That'd be fine. And then I also, too, do a couple of other things as well. So I'm also a resume writer. I have a career coaching business as well, which I help individuals find employment for those that are having a hard time. And then I also too work as a real estate agent as well.
Okay.
So if anyone needs any housing or housing assistance here in the Chicago Southland area, just feel free to reach out to me as well.
Man, that's awesome. And I will definitely put the link to connect with you in the description. I may put the LinkedIn link so they can reach you on LinkedIn from the description that I will place, whenever they watch this video. So they can, especially those who want to transition into different career paths, may
Yeah.
need to revamp their resume. So definitely make sure I put the link in the description so they can reach out to you. So my final question is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
Sure. I would definitely say it's legacy.
Okay.
I think that word defines exactly the type of impact I want to have on the world. I definitely want to have I want to have it on two fronts. I want to have a legacy, obviously for my son and my family. So my son, when he looks back, he can say, hey, Dad was a great man. He did A, B, C, D. And so I would definitely like him to have an example of what a positive Black male role model looks like. And so, of course, I would like to be the first to mind when he thinks of that, of course.
Right.
And then also, too, legacy on a professional level as well. I'm working now with a number of different organizations to establish programs and resources for our communities. So for individuals who may be in need or individuals who are looking for assistance, we will have those resources ready and available to try to help them as well. And that's something that once it is established and it's up and running, there's something that's going to be around for quite some time. And it's something that's going to be definitely a game changer in our area, because there's so many individuals that struggle economically. And so we just want to have resources available to provide them with some type of relief. And that's something that we're diligently working on as of right now, especially going into the new year.
Okay, man, that's great. Legacy is always great, and the impact that we have within our community. Because I think one of the best things that we can do is serve others and be a great example for others.
Yes.
Because that's what is going to be left behind. The impact we have and how we make the other people feel whilst we're on our journey. So, Mr. Jones, it was a pleasure having you here on the Black Male Impact. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, your perspective, and insights that I believe we all can utilize as we continue on our journey.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cross, for having me. I appreciate you, sir. And I'm looking forward to collaborating with you in the future on any other platforms, anything else that you are a part of as well. So please keep me in mind. But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you.
Well, it's a pleasure, man. Definitely keep you in mind because we're going to continue doing this work. We will be starting in next year early. I'm saying next year, but we'll start in soon. We'll be starting soon, State of Black Men. So it's going to be ongoing. Where we'll be talking with different Black men from a collective standpoint and what we can do and what we're doing to make a difference. So most definitely, I'll be reaching out to you for furthering the conversation or furthering the work that we need to do as Black men.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and always, listeners, it's a pleasure being here. And just please continue to support us here on the Black Male Impact as we continue to make a difference. As you know, this is where positive change happens. So we bring guests that we believe will help to further the cause that we are trying to do, where we're trying to inspire change, not only in our immediate communities, but wherever we can be to make a difference. Thanks again for being here with us on the Black Male Impact.